wasting my way through days, losing youth along the way. Oh, if God is on my side.
What's up, everyone? I hope y'all can hear us. We're excited about this. Excited to talk about some Texas Roundnet, and we'll talk a little bit about our organization. For anyone, if you know anyone that can't make it, we're going to be recording this and putting it on YouTube later. But we're excited for the first time trying out the stream and doing something like this and just talking about TASR. So I guess now is better than ever, right, Ryan?
Yeah. Thanks for joining, y'all. Excited to walk through the history. I know a lot of newer players out there weren't around for all this, and yeah, I think it'll be kind of eye-opening and hopefully kind of fun too.
All right. Let's see. I'm seeing can't see Brian. Oh no.
That's probably for the best, though.
Let's see. Let's see if we can get some help back there. You should. I don't know why. I can see you just fine. Oh, actually no. I see what they're talking about. I can see you on
Oh yeah.
Yeah, weird. Let's try this. What if I move you? Actually, uh-oh. Some trouble there. What if I transition here? Brian showing up? This did not happen when we were testing.
Nope.
Classic first stream. Okay, let's move you here and see if this messes it up. Hopefully it doesn't. Oh, now I don't know where you went.
Also, Matt, how's the audio? Still quiet or?
I turned it up a little bit.
Okay.
So we'll see. And can we transition that? Will that show?
Not seeing anything on my end.
Yeah, that's weird. It's not showing up. You're not showing up. Let's see. See if I can fiddle with some settings. Yeah, I guess you can. I'll keep trying to work on this if you wanna give a little bit more intro. Okay, slow tag quiet for me. It could just be deaf. I'll turn it up a little bit more.
So we got Garrett in the chat. Welcome.
Actually, it's fine. Well, I just turned it up, so sounds good here. Yeah, it sounds like the issue is all Matthew. Trying to figure this out. Why this isn't working? Stream overlay, Brian's Google Hangout. Nothing like problem solving when you're live.
Worst comes to worst, we can always go through as is. Definitely not ideal, but
that's true. At least have your audio. We can throw up a picture of you there.
Yeah, we'll pull up Fat Brian. Talk about some nice Texas Roundnet history there.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's favorite part of it. Okay. What if I just add a new one? That could be a bad idea, but window capture, we'll try it. And source. Ooh, that's not. Actually, no, it's do. There's this one. At least there's that's right, there's an agenda. Did I do that? All right. Oops.
Yeah. So all you iSpike guys, are you guys able to play, or is it just the A&M people?
Will there be dog? There's most likely going to be at least one dog in this stream. I can't talk for Willa.
Let's put it this way. Willa may or may not come up, but she most definitely will howl at some point. There will inevitably be a delivery man or someone walking across the street. So that is unavoidable. But yeah, very jealous of you, Garrett and Matthew. I've 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 done nothing but serve and pepper with my little sister. So gets a little old after 2 months.
True. Well, I'm gonna do this then. Do this. And for now, I don't know why it's not showing up.
It's an excellent point, Burroughs. An excellent point. We need to get this working, Logan, just for Willa.
That's true. That's a good point. Well, we can at least do this for a little bit so it looks better. But I may have you. Oh, let's just get started right now, and then we'll find a point where I can just send you, and you can talk about something for a long time, and I'll try to fix it.
Sounds good.
Cool. So we'll go ahead and just get going now. And we'll start out talking about a little bit of the history. So Texas I feel like has a little more rich history than a lot of places, obviously because it is a young sport, but just because we've been a lot more like islands, like we have been harder to connect than a lot of other places. So it's taken a lot more work and it was a lot slower growth than a lot of other states, which makes for some fun events and just a really slow history with some good stories too.
Yeah, and I think it's a really it's one that's for me kind of noted by a couple people throughout. Like there hasn't been as much turnover and change until very recently as a result, and I think it makes it a funny kind of way to look. I think when we look back at this in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be it's just gonna think. I think it's gonna be very brief, and you're gonna look and you're like, wow, the real start of kind of Texas Roundnet was when you had all these college clubs come up, and you had TASR kind of starting to help organize them and everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, it was like, I guess it was like a group of like 7 or 8 people for up until like 2 years ago. And that's part of the reason I used the pic I did in this Instagram post is I feel like it was like a perfect picture of like where the sport is now. Cause it was, Sam and Grayson on one side, and then it was Nick and Matthew on the other, and then it was you and I in the middle. So it's kind of this fun, like bridging the gap between old Texas Roundnet and then just like the entry of new Texas Roundnet.
yeah, and it's really cool. It's a perfect picture, honestly. But it really is so fun looking back and uh, thinking back to those guys because it really felt like Texas, kind of the whole state, was what most people think of as like their local club. You know, we had like these 7 players, and they were like family. You know, we would all travel across the country together and all these things. And I think the most people we had in any one city at any point was 4. And like we're
If
all,
even, I don't even know if I
yeah, I
guess,
think it was like that for like 2 months, I think, like a summer.
yeah.
And it was like the best summer ever. It was amazing. But it really was just so different than it is today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, going back to 4, I guess we had 4 in College Station between me, Zach, Garrett, Tanner, and yeah, that's 4. Me, Zach, Garrett, and Tanner. And College
Yeah.
Station, but that was for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I guess the group kind of that was like the original like Lone Star Roundnet and the original like Texas Roundnet was me, you, Sam, Grayson, and then it was Garrett and
Jason Porter.
yep, Jason Porter, and then Max. You know, Max was there. He was never there, but he was part of it. And then Zach and Tanner.
Yep.
And so that was like for what, like 4 all through college for us, like 4 or 5 years. That was a solid crew, and like we were going to everything. We'd have meetups all the time, which is pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. I think we at some point, I kind of forget when exactly, but at some point Jenna did move
Yeah.
down, and so she kind of joined it, but was sort of towards the tail end of her kind of playing career.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And Yeah, because I guess, and then the first tournament, so like before all of it started, the first Texas tournament that was like an official tournament, I guess, was when I started the A&M club. So that would have been back in 2013, I think, 2013, and that's when like Harding Brumby came to that tournament from New Mexico. Um, and it was crazy because he was so bad at that tournament. And like he drove all that way and lost in like the first round, um, which was crazy. But it's like it's cool now looking back and like seeing Harding's career and like that's where it started. And for me, it's like, oh, that's awesome. Like he came to that tournament. Like I helped start Harding.
Nice. Now at that point, was there any double elimination or consolation, or was it he lost in the first round, was done?
Dude, I don't even remember. I don't think we had consolation. I'm pretty sure he lost in the first round and was done. Like I don't think there was anything beyond that. Like we didn't do that.
Who did he even play with? Oh, there's Willa.
Yeah, Cloud is literally bringing a toy to me every like 3 seconds right now. But yeah, I don't know. I think he just like someone I guess he was friends with in New Mexico. Harding just to play a game, it was always just he would find anyone who'd be willing to play whether they were good or not. That's part of why he got so good is he just got whoever was willing to play and came and played with them.
I mean, no hindsight 2020. We know how passionate Harding is,
For sure.
but the real story there is the guy he convinced to drive 10 hours or whatever it is.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, and so that was like the first tournament, like a big marquee. And sometimes like I realize now it's like it's hard to like I don't remember the chronological order of all this happening because this was 2013, so this was before like the first like the unofficial nationals in what was it 2013? So that would have been the fall 2013. And that was actually I met Jenna. I mean, she being a pretty crucial part of like Texas history. Texas Roundnet history, which I guess is Texas history, the Texas history.
Right.
But yeah, I played a tournament with her in um, Atlanta, which was a lot of fun. It was actually, I believe, Andrew Card's first tournament. So like we played them at the first tournament, and like we beat everyone in pool play, and like we lost to them, and I was like so annoyed because like some team I'd never heard of. We like barely lost to them in pool play, and I wanted another shot at them, but we didn't get to play them again. But
Was that
then,
Scenic City at that point,
yeah,
or
yeah,
was that
yeah.
pre?
I think their team name was Scenic City. I don't remember if it was something different, but it was something like that. But yeah, it was him and Tucker. Um,
Okay.
and that was
How many teams were at that first Texas tournament? Sorry to track back
no,
to
no,
the
you're
and
good. My guess would be something like 15 ish, and like it was run on like Google Sheets. So Google Sheets, people paid like at cash on site. Like I don't even know how Harding found it, but it was a fun time.
that's the real question.
Yeah, yeah, and that was like the first tournament. And it was like first tournament at A&M too, so it was like our first tournament after becoming a club, which was pretty cool. Um, yeah, but then I think the next like big Texas tournament after that, like there were tournaments that happened and people played and came on, but the next big one was probably the Austin tournament back in I think it was 2014.
It was 2014. It was spring 2014, April, because I was at that tournament. That was my first tournament,
Okay,
actually.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and so I found Roundnet through like a Christian sports camp that I was a counselor at summer of 2013. Brought it back. Was hoping to start playing with all my roommates. I lived with 3 other guys, all athletic. I was like, oh, this is gonna be amazing. None of them played with me. It was horrible, but ended up being able to organize some like tournaments. I mean, we had tournaments every Friday with like 25 people that would show up just at UTD.
That's awesome.
And it was awesome. But me and Sam was one of the guys who was playing there at that point with me. And we were really the only ones that kind of took it seriously enough and to like stick with it. And yeah, I think I don't even know how exactly we found this April Madness tournament that was in Austin, but I think I must have just Googled it, honestly, and found my way to usaspikeball.com, signed up, and we did decent, but I'm pretty sure we lost. I've got like 2 memories of that tournament. The first one is meeting Logan, which you probably doesn't remember meeting me, but
I
meeting
don't
Logan.
remember meeting you, but I remember you being at the tournament.
I remember like warming up with you a little bit, and I just remember this dude trying way too hard in warm up and was just like slamming the ball. It was killing me. I was just like, who is this guy? Ended up being like in the finals. But me and Sam, I think we lost to Harding and Jenna, who were playing as Air Republic at the time, which I wouldn't remember except for the fact that they had like Savage jerseys. And I was like, oh gosh, this is a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that tournament, I was playing with my good friend who like was my very first partner, Zach Garcia, at that tournament. That tournament was like starting to be the end of like us playing together, and just like getting frustrated because we lost to Jenna Harding as well, and I remember being so frustrated we lost things like, oh my, because we lost to them like game 3 in extras in game 3, and I was just like so frustrated that we lost, because like we're better than them, and it was awesome meeting everyone at that tournament. But like, because I think we met Chase and Porter at that tournament too. I'm not sure we knew
oh
them
yeah,
yet, but I feel like they were there. Like, okay, oh yeah, because the Friendswood guys. Because I remember Garrett. Garrett came to that tournament, and I was like, who is this guy? This guy is like obnoxious. Um, but then like as we got to know, I was like, oh, I love Garrett. But yeah, because the Friendswood guys came to that tournament too.
and just to be clear, the Friendswood guys were Garrett, Chase, Porter, and Max, and they had a big crew that played in Friendswood all through high school, and
Yeah.
so but those were the four. So it's kind of crazy to us because the rest of us were all from scattered places, and then there's this little contingent from Friendswood.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Which and like now, like I met so many people from Friendswood after that. It was crazy that I just like knew. Just happened to be from
Yeah.
there. Um, yeah, and then let's see. After that, um, then like I
So
guess
I guess for me after that, the crazy thing is, I don't know if Grayson was at that tournament, the April Madness one. I don't think he was.
no, that was I think that was he and Zach's first tournament. Because
Was it?
I think I set
Zach
that.
was playing at Swamp Donkeys.
I know, but I think that was because he was playing with his previous partner Ben. That was their team name when they played at A&M, and I think I'd actually set them up to play at that tournament. And that was
Oh, and
their first tournament playing together, and they lost to Jenna. They lost to Jenna and Harding as well. I'm pretty sure.
okay, that's super interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was their first. That tournament was like a pivotal tournament in like Texas
It
history,
really
and
was.
it actually was the biggest tournament up until this last season, which is just crazy. They had like 40 something teams.
Yeah. That's wild. A Young Life tournament, if I remember
Yep,
correctly.
yep.
But oddly enough, so following that tournament, me and Sam were at UT Dallas, so we went back to school, and I remember I think it was like early Twitter days, and so we were probably, I think we tweeted out, "Oh, about to go play some spike ball," and Harding. I think in those old days he actually used to like search spike ball on Twitter, and he used to like respond to everyone who had tweeted about spike ball.
That's awesome.
And so he found us and was like, "Hey, you're in Dallas. You should play with this guy." And this guy was Grayson. And so after that, me, Sam, and Grayson plus whoever the fourth person we could find in Dallas at the time would be, we just started playing all the time. And so that was kind of crazy that Harding was really the reason why we all started playing. And for the most part, Grayson was the guy who like introduced me and Sam to kind of the national scene. And, we probably would have found it regardless, but he definitely helped us find it earlier. And I mean, Grayson's just such an incredible player, and he was back then as well. And so I remember him teaching us pull shots and all these things. And it was like, oh my gosh, like we're learning from a legend. It
Yeah,
was pretty cool.
yeah, yeah. No, it was. I mean, Artificial Flavors was. They were the kings of Texas for as long as they played, and it was one of the most frustrating things to me because I got second at so many tournaments because of them.
I was gonna say me and Sam have the same exact thing. Cause I don't know how many tournaments that Logan, you and I actually played with those early days. Because me and Sam, I remember getting second to them almost always as well.
Yeah,
I know we played some, but
it was generally if
uh,
all three of us were playing, it was like y'all would always get third, Bear would always get fourth. We would get second. Artificial Flavors would get first. And then if Tanner and I didn't play, then y'all would get second. Bear would hopefully get third. But yeah, there's only one tournament where I remember losing to you. That was one of the worst tournaments ever.
It was a good tournament.
I remember that tournament because it was I was trying to speed the tournament up because like Grayson and Zach had to be somewhere, and so I was like so stressed out trying to speed the tournament up, and then Tanner and I ended up losing to you and Garrett, and it was like from that day forward that I was like, you know what? No, if I'm the tournament director, I'm running the tournament as it should be gone because it's the tournament for everyone, not just a few people. So that was a pivotal moment in my tournament directing experience.
You know, it's funny, but I actually don't even remember that tournament anymore. I remember beating you, but I don't remember anything else.
Wow. Wait, because it was
But
a college station tournament. Remember that?
yeah,
Most of them
I shouldn't
were,
even
I guess. When I think that was probably 2015 or 20. No, that was 20. That was probably 2015. I think it was fall 2015.
Okay, that would make sense.
Because Savannah played in that tournament. So I remember that.
I think one of the cool things, I'm not sure, I might be skipping ahead a little bit, but I think it was that next spring, so fall 2015, we started to have the first new kind of like good and motivated kind of a new team with potential basically that emerged. I believe was it Stack Deck?
I think so. Yeah. Because we were excited about
And
them.
so I think that was 2015, and we were all super excited because what you guys have to understand is that at this point, it had been about like 2 years of no one doing like of just like no one emerging and no one like no hope. It's just like, oh, it's the same old people coming out to each thing. It's the people who care, and then a bunch of people who it's like their first time and they came out and don't really care to take it any further.
Yeah.
And so we see these young high school kids from Austin, and this was Remy Fenrick and Drew.
Yeah, Drew Brummer.
Drew Brummer, and we were just so pumped. We're like, finally, like we got some new mix, and it's just so funny looking at that compared to now, because I mean, like there's so many new players. It's just like it's not even a pipeline. It's just a steady stream. And
Yeah.
back then, we were literally just like put all our hopes and dreams on them. And unfortunately, I think there's like some injuries, and then they kind of like lost it. And Remy still plays here and there, but
I thought
they
well, Drew went to A&M, and I thought he was going to be the future of Texas Roundnet. And then I remember it's really ironic because like I think Frederick told me that, but like Drew just like didn't want to play because like Frederick and all them, they weren't that good when they started. But then they started grinding so hard, and just like in no time they like got better than Drew, and then Drew was just not a part of it anymore. So still would love him to have back in playing, but it was just funny how quickly they got good, and obviously I still are getting better.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like another big like kind of influential, kind of pivotal tournament is, and you'll have to remind me which one this is, but it was a heat wave, and it was Frederick's first like tournament, or at least tournament with us. And I remember Zach Danila was his partner, and I can't remember if Zach's like original partner had backed out, but it was all very last minute.
Yeah.
Zach like wasn't going to play for some reason, but I remember he started playing, and it was just like this no-name kid named Frederick. We had no idea who he was, and it's so funny looking back at that now.
And they got, I think they got third of that tournament too. Like I don't remember who'd you play with.
I think I was playing with Sam at that one, because that was actually the first time that Sam started having health issues.
Yes, because it was Chris Moats played with Grayson, and then it was the 5-game final. That's what it was. And then I played with Savannah, and then Zach played with Frederick, and they got third.
Yeah, I didn't love getting second in that one. I think we had to forfeit. Sam had to go to the hospital with dehydration. But Yeah, it was a cool one. And yeah, I mean, that's all. I mean, that's another big one too, though. We did have at that time Chris Moats, who's now out in Georgia. He had kind of come onto the scene,
Yeah,
and I mean, he was a breath of fresh air because just super athletic, wanted to play, and I mean, so athletic that it just kind of naturally came to him. And
yeah.
we were sad to see him go. But I
What?
guess what time was that? Was that tournament in 2016?
I think that was 2017, maybe.
I think 2017.
It could have been no, yeah, 'cause it wouldn't have been 2016 because I was gone in 2016.
I
Um,
guess you're right.
yeah, and um, with that, I remember when Chris came on the scene, we I remember like Facebook stalking when he asked, like we saw he like played baseball at um, wow, now I'm at Yale. He played baseball at Yale, and we are like, oh shoot, like this dude's gonna be an athlete, like he can play. And then he came up and was like, oh yeah, dude, this guy can play. We were excited.
Didn't he find you at like the San Francisco tour stop or something like that?
He was there. He didn't find us though. I think that was his first tournament, but he didn't find us there. He found us through
Okay,
the Facebook page.
gotcha. Yeah, wild though. But one of the things that you guys might have noticed is there's like not that many tournaments kind of going back here. At this time, you basically had the Winter Classic that would happen sometimes, based out of like A&M that Logan would run, and then you'd have the Heat Wave in the summer. And as far as Texas tournaments go, like you might have some like little Austin ones pop up every once in a while, but that was kind of it. And for a long
Yeah.
time, there was like one, maybe two tournaments, and
Plus
then you'd have the Dallas tour
the tour
stop,
stop.
and the other tournaments were 10+ hours away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was weird. I remember driving to, I mean, we drove both to Nashville and Atlanta in weekends for like regionals and tournament, just like driving 12 hours on Friday and 12 hours on Saturday. And it's fun now, like with the all like the wave of new players, seeing them kind of do the same thing. Like, oh yeah, those are fun times.
Yeah, and I mean, like thinking back to it, it was those spike trips that really those are my main memories, honestly. It's like it's
Yeah.
not like the history of Texas Roundnet for the most part happened like the early memories, the early days. It happened outside of Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Which
it
is
was like if there was any tournament, like we had to host it.
yeah, and you were basically hosting it to play two,
Yeah.
maybe three competitive games.
Yeah.
And that's not series games. Because typically you'd have maybe like two pool play games. That would be good, depending on how many pools you had. If it was just one,
Yeah.
and then you'd have maybe a series. It just kind of depended on how it all shook out. And so
Once
it's those spikes, the driving through the night to get to Atlanta. You know, those are all the memories, and I mean, I loved it though. It
yeah,
was
it was a blast, and
awesome.
it was like it was through those that we like started to see the community and just like we always wanted to have more tournaments. We just didn't feel like
Yeah,
we could. We didn't feel like we'd have enough people to do more tournaments. And as like the sport started to grow, obviously we started to feel like that a little more and see a little bit more. And like even I think it was 2016. Um, someone actually it was an independent party that hosted a tournament in Capel. Do you remember that one, Brian?
yeah.
I
I
remember
don't.
that one.
I'd like if you did
Yeah, that was I
it.
guess technically you and Sam beat me and you beat me and Josh Bissonette. It was a double
We
elimination.
didn't technically beat you. We beat you.
Yeah, yeah, you technically beat us, but it was double elimination. And so then we went and we won and we met you in the finals again and we went what, 5 straight games to take first place?
It was horrible.
Oh, that was amazing. That was a good feeling. That's pretty they even had a cool trophy too.
Yeah, that was a cool tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was.
I think Bissonette is a pretty important part to touch on too, because he moved from he was at Santa Barbara, right, playing with all those guys. Like he was playing with Buddy and I know it's for sure Buddy, but it was all those guys over there, like Beavers. Um, and he was playing with them in high school, and then he moved to Baylor because he was on their baseball team. Well, moved to Waco to go to Baylor,
Yeah.
play on their baseball team. And so whenever he was out of season, he was like everyone's favorite person to play with.
Yeah.
Guy was just an animal.
Yeah, he was solid.
And so, unfortunately, he was actually really good at his main sport.
Yeah.
So we didn't get as much of him. But I remember playing, what was it, 2016 regionals and nationals with him.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
Kool-Aid.
Y'all upset RIP.
We upset RIP and regionals. And so played. I like to think that we played a role in sort of building up their mythology, because if it hadn't been for us, they wouldn't have had to go through that gauntlet at nationals where
Yeah,
they beat every California team. They would have had a higher seed.
that's true.
But because we knocked them out in regionals, they didn't make power pool. They were in there like the rest of us. And so when they went, because they ended up getting what, third or fourth that year.
I think they got fourth.
But they went through Buns and Guns, Strange Embrace, I think.
No, Stranger Brace got second that year.
Okay, maybe that's who they lost to, but maybe it was Buns and Guns and what was the other one? It was Ball Blasters, I think. Anyways, they played like all of them except Chico Spikes and like played them really well. And I remember sitting there, I was like, yeah, I think I played a little bit of a part in that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hey,
Obviously,
you got them. You upset them in regionals, so they didn't have to get upset in nationals.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, Biss is the man, and a huge part of our. What does type 1 for Brian mean?
I think it's just
I hear that.
if
I hear that.
you like Brian Moore type 1, and I guess everyone's keyboards are broken.
Yeah, crickets. But but yeah, this was awesome. We had a lot of. I think we had the most meetups, like of just casual meeting up
Yeah,
when he was playing, because everyone was like, "Oh, I want to play," and he was in Waco, and so that was like the central spot, and it was like everyone just wanted to play with him. So
yeah. No, and it was like I think there's a few. I feel like there's lots of videos on maybe the Texas Roundnet or Lone Star YouTube, like from that kind of period where we got a lot of games in. And it was like, yeah, for
yeah,
us, it was either right after college or near the end. And so, like, we were trying to play as much as we possibly could.
yeah.
Brian, I may have a fix on your video, so I'm gonna have to cut you off for a second, and then we're gonna see if it works. So just to
No,
get your video up.
no sweat.
All right. Hopefully this doesn't mess anything else up. We'll see. I'm gonna copy this. Okay. Let's see if it works. We're back. We're getting a black screen with his video. Okay. Getting back into the Google Hangout. You're not wrong, Matthew. All right.
I don't know if my audio is working, but Matthew's got a great point there.
I'm not arguing.
Can't be disputed.
I guess I'm not arguing. Let's see. Let's see if this is it capturing your screen. Maybe I need to re-add the source. Okay. I think your audio's coming through at least. Can y'all hear Brian?
Hey guys. Anyways, while you're kind of working on that, I can talk a little bit about I guess those like some spike trips, or we might say that for stories. But
Yeah, let's say that for stories. Maybe we can transition to the next part.
Yeah. Org structure.
Yeah. You can get started on that while I'm trying to get your video hopefully up.
Yeah. So, anyways, one of the main themes that we found in that you might have noticed in the history was that it was all very slow and scattered, and there was basically just us. And we, for a long time, it's not that we were looking for succession planning, but like we wanted new players, and we knew that we weren't going to be able to play forever. And there was there was honestly a point where we were kind of looking at each other and we're like, if we just like stopped playing, would this just die?
Yeah.
Like would there be no at the time spike ball players in Texas? Because one of the things that you got to know, like we'd always have like we talked about how there was rarely ever four of us in the same city.
Yeah.
So we'd still be playing though, and we'd have like a fourth person typically that just like wasn't as devoted, didn't want to like travel, and so would but was always like decent, and we would always kind of be trying to get to travel, but it was such a burden to say, hey, do you want to like take this a little more seriously? And they're like, yeah, and you're like, awesome, drive 10 hours with me to go play in a tournament across the
Yeah.
country. It's just like a big jump from I'm interested to that.
Yep.
And so me and Logan started talking. I guess it was summer of 2017, right, Logan?
Yeah, summer, because I think it was beginning of 2018 when we made everything official. So it would have been summer of 2017.
Yeah. We started playing, and that was, or we were playing a lot because Logan was in Dallas finally, and we were like enjoying that. And, uh, he kind of brought this up of like this idea of, hey, like, let's, like, what if we did something like this? And so we started talking, and,
And I
uh,
guess something that did happen before that is because I had I'd run a college league my senior year. Um, Between it was A&M Kingsville, Baylor, and UT. UTD was too scared to play, so they didn't play in that league. Um, and so that was like it was an official business. Started it like each team had to pay to compete, and like it was like the National Collegiate Roundnet League. And so that was like the first time I like experienced like starting like a business with Roundnet and be like, okay, like this can happen. Like I think interest is growing. It's not there yet, but putting something in place. And but I realized like it's so hard to do on your own, and like there's just so much that goes into it. Um, from there, but that was like one of the first times I was like, okay, I can see more happening.
yeah. And so we'll talk a little bit about like forming Taser and the kind of the stories around that. But we basically wanted to create. Actually, I'll go ahead and give the story. We'll go in more in depth kind of stuff there. But we when we first had the idea for it, it was like let's just get something formal out there that can run things instead of just being one thing. Like there's too many people who we would, host a tournament and we'd be talking with them and we're like, hey, who do you play with? And like, oh man, it's me and a couple buddies. They don't take it that seriously, but like no one plays around me. And I mean, we've got the spike ball app and stuff like that. But the thing is it can't be everything. There's not everyone looks on that, and it just wasn't working fast enough for us. And so uh, we had so many people who would say, I just can't find anybody to play with, and uh, we'd be like, well, I was actually just talking to somebody who told me the same thing, and they like are in the same city as you. And so we had this idea of like, okay, let's come up with a formal structure that'll like run tournaments. And then let's just organize pickup groups where it's like, hey, here's a central location. You can look, if you live in Houston, here's a group of people who play. And if you want to take it seriously, you can start, kind of like work your way up. Um, and so that's where it all kind of started was let's create kind of a grassroots group that, hey, I think I'm on.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing you.
All right. Um, Man, now I can't be leaning back. But let's create this kind of grassroots organization that can essentially funnel people up as they want to get more competitive. There was no way to get someone from 0 to 100. There was no 20, 40,
Yeah.
60 mile per hour limit. And so we wanted to build that. And that's where we kind of set on this structure really from the start. It hasn't changed all that much from our original vision. You want to talk about that, Logan?
Yeah, well, one thing I do want to touch on as well is, which what kind of feeds into this, is we realized too is like the friendships with the people we had in Texas. We were forming good friendships with people across the country, and like I would tell people all the time, I can go to any city, I can go to any state, and like there's someone there that I know, and I have a friend there, and there's like these
Yeah.
pockets of people that we were friends with around the U.S. We're like, well, like we kind of have that on a smaller level here. Like let's make something bigger, where we can kind of recreate that community experience, but across Texas. Recreate like
And that was key because there was a lot of people who would play, and it was like that fourth person in the city, right? Who
yeah.
would play with us, didn't know the rest of the community, and it was like to get them to be a part of this community, like they should be able to experience that in Texas, not have to go to Atlanta to become
Yeah,
such great friends with all these people.
exactly.
And
And there was no stick, like you were saying earlier. Like people would play and then they'd stop. Like they'd come to a tournament, we never see them again. There's no stick because the way we saw it is there was no community. So yeah, so we wanted to create that, and like we already had these pockets of like where some players were, and it's like the hub idea was a pretty natural one and easy one to come up with. Where like if we could just get people to play in these areas, keep getting them to stick, and like slowly grow these areas, then that's where we can have these pockets. And so that's kind of where the hub idea. And like it wasn't anything necessarily groundbreaking, but I think just the fact of making it official and getting one body behind building it up was super important to us because, like we said, no one was sticking. People were playing, but there wasn't a bigger thing to be a part of unless you were willing to drive 15 hours. Like in any which way. Like the closest tournaments to us were outside, like the closest SRA tournaments outside of Dallas was Nashville and Atlanta, which like 11 and 15 hours away, respectively. So we wanted to like create something, and like obviously the SRA system was working and it was growing and people were really enjoying it. So we wanted to recreate that on our scale, and so that's where hubs came into play. Let's see. Did I ever? Oh, I don't. I'm gonna get that one graphic. I don't think I ever got it, so I'm gonna go get that.
okay. Yeah, and so while he's looking for this graphic, there's obviously a lot that went into this, but I think it's funny looking back on it now, seeing kind of how big the sport has gotten in Texas. And yes, Matthew, we've had Y Spike come in, an important part of the history. We've had the guys at A&M come in, obviously more scattered, but at the A&M club and Waco, being a huge one with Baylor. There's just a lot with the college scene that has come up that I don't think we expected, but it's been awesome.
Yeah.
And so I can't iterate enough how when we were first starting this, it was like, man, let's just like build a net and hope demand comes. We had no idea that the sport was going to kind of take off like this.
I mean, I wouldn't say we had
there's a
no idea.
little bit of chicken. Yeah.
I'd say we had some idea. We didn't know how much it would. Like we knew there was potential. We didn't necessarily know when it was going to come.
Yes, I'll say that. I agree with that. It's not that we didn't think it was going to happen, but we definitely, and we'll walk through a little bit of our like the goals that we set back then, which in some ways is kind of hilarious. But we just did not think it was going to be kind of this big, this fast, and it's been really cool to see that happen.
Let's see. I'll load this up for us to look at. Is it going? Is it going? Well, I think I'm going to, but maybe I'm not. Oh, I guess I'll do it the more manual way. Just want to pull up kind of, and it's something probably a lot of y'all have already seen, but if we're going to talk about our structure, like this is just the easiest way to lay it out, because even from the beginning we wanted a funnel more or less to like create a system, and we didn't necessarily know how it would develop long term, but that taking someone from the bottom and then moving them through the system higher and higher was something we were looking for.
Yeah, and the idea there was you look at any kind of traditional established sport, there's a pyramid kind of funnel structure built in at every single level. Like, if you're looking at soccer or something like that, there's rec soccer, and you might play as a kid or you might play that as, a young adult, but like there's rec soccer, like at the lowest level. And then, or I guess at the lowest level, you have like pickup games, and then you've got like rec leagues and things like that. And you've got like competitive travel teams. and then you've got, maybe like college teams, or you have like used to have like you've got more like academies, like Olympic development programs and things like that. And there's this sort of thing where it's like, oh, if you are trying to, take it to the next level, you not only have a place where you can do that, but you have something to look towards. You have this idea of, oh, I see these guys and they're good. I want to be like that. I want to play like them. And we thought that having that visibility um, was just as important as having uh, the structure itself. The ability to play at that level. And so that was really important as we were building this up.
Yep. It's maybe we won't show it. It's right here. I just can't get it. I put into stupid this
That's right.
photo
I'll kind of
album.
talk through it, and
Oh
before
wait,
you get it up there, then
found it. Does that work? And then hot dog right here. Put this here. Oh yeah, we're getting it now. It's not going to be centered, and I don't care. Transition. All right. Oh yeah, looks like you're gone now, but
Matthew, just like the early Texas Roundnet history, it is a big waiting game, waiting for this org structure.
there it is. All right. So yeah. So I mean, this kind of defines it. Where it starts out like, what is TASR? Like the idea is that we build hubs, groups of players around, and kind of the vision of these hubs has grown more, and we'll talk about that later. But then hubs connect with local groups like parks and recs or schools or sport recreation groups, and then those turn into clubs and have more competitive and players that are focused on competing at top level or like at least a local top level, and then that develops into like Lone Star, which is like the highest players, the pro level. And so with it, you can just see like the casual to like kind of more local, like official to competitive to like professional is all of that. And that's kind of what we built the system kind of having in mind is that funnel.
Yeah. And it's interesting because right now, with the way that it looks, is we've got hubs in different cities, and then we have some like college clubs that are also hubs in those cities, and it's sort of like a mixture. And a lot of this is kind of that middle ground until we get to 5-10 years down the road, where every city has a hub where you've got casual players, but every city also has a club of devoted kind of players who are looking for that competitive improvement and
Yeah.
looking for that side of the game. And so we're excited to realize that it's not quite there in every city, but we think it's something that is crucial for kind of the development of players as they kind of move within the system.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of like our structure. And we'll talk more on like, I guess, where we see it going. Cause I feel like that structure now, there's just so much potential we see with it as it's grown. And that's kind of like the basic structure in where we see it. So we can kind of move on to the forming TASR.
Yeah. So I think as we were developing this structure and thinking through what would be kind of the best way to do it, one of the biggest kind of challenges, I guess, was the understanding that if you're going to have a hub, which was all dependent on hubs, it was you needed to have a really good hub leader. And by really good, it's not like, oh, a really good player. It's you need to have someone who cares about growing the game, and cares about teaching, cares about kind of bringing this community aspect that we had grown to love about the Roundnet community, and people who cared about that. And that's not something that you find every day. And so like right now we've got a lot of hubs, and that's awesome, but we weren't sure that there would be this kind of large group of people who kind of we felt met that criteria. And so it's been really cool to see that develop.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, yeah, like we were nervous about that. And for the longest time, I think we've been conditioned to where it's like, we can't find these people. Like we can't find people to build this or otherwise it
Yeah.
would be, it's like only us. And to like see like putting the system in place and like seeing people coming out to do that is what's been great so far. Because I'm trying to pull it up, but like we'll have kind of our goals and what that looked like as we formed it. But our goal is to consistently always add hubs across cities. And obviously everything happening right now may change a little bit. We'll see. But like our goal is to add hubs all the time, and we want to cover all of Texas. And the more hubs we add, like the more options it gives us for like casual and competitive play.
Yeah, and it's really the name of the game is accessibility. We saw Texas as a culture that would embrace RoundNet, but it was just inaccessible because of kind of the sprawl that we have. It just makes it so much different than places like California or even like New York City with like Central Park and stuff like that. There wasn't in most of our cities, Austin's sort of the exception, but there wasn't that one place where everyone goes to play. You talk about all these guys in California. Most of them found the game because they stumbled upon the competitive players playing on the beach because that's where you play. And you just didn't really have that here. And we wanted to bring that accessibility and lower kind of the barriers to people wanting to play the game. It's like if you want to play, you should be able to find people who play, and if you want to get better, it should be easy for you to find people that will help you get better.
Yeah.
And so I think another thing that was so one of the big things for us was developing a hub leader kind of onboarding guide of here's the expectations, here's what we want, here's how we'll support you, and so developing that took a lot of time to kind of understand what we wanted to get right. But then there was a lot of stuff as well in this kind of forming TASR part that was mainly based around how do we do this in a way that enables us to best support the players, because we didn't want TASR to just be a social media page or something like that. It's like, how can we actually, as like a centralized organization, support the community, the players, the best? And I think that was something that took. I think that we didn't have it completely figured out at the beginning, and some that's kind of formed and developed as we went, and probably will continue to as the community changes. But I think one of the key things there was, well, one of the things that we can do as a centralized tournament, as a centralized group, is run really, we can bring the community together through connecting people. That's a no-brainer. Yep. The second thing is we can provide quality tournaments, and a lot of them. We can kind of do it in a systematic way that means that it's not just Austin and Dallas and College Station that host tournaments. We can do them all over and spread that out in a way that makes sense. But we can also make sure that they're run the right way and held to a level that when someone plays in a tournament, they want to come back. They want to dive into the community. I think that's really important for us.
I think what we were starting to see too is that like there was the demand. We could host multiple events, and even our first year as TASR, like we didn't even host any events that year. It was like we hosted the normal events that we usually had, but we didn't host anything over and beyond because we're like, okay, weren't sure. And this is when kind of the newest wave, the newest generation of players was starting to come on, like the A&M guys and Y Spike and Texas Roundnet 2.0. Yeah. And so like as these guys started to come and like their passion grew, and we saw that and that they were serious, they were a good indication. Like, okay, we can start to host more tournaments, which led us to be able to have the majors, which we weren't even like, we didn't have a plan for when we first started. We wanted to host them, but we weren't sure when we would have that demand.
Yeah. And I think there was a lot of kind of hesitancy there around like, do we go big and try and make this happen and see if people come, or do we kind of grow slowly and take it incrementally? And I think that's where, I don't know about you, Logan, but I think I oftentimes take a more pessimistic view. You take a more optimistic view, and we kind of meet in the middle
Yeah,
most of the time. Um,
for sure.
but it's been a fun balance seeing that, and it's been really cool to see my, in a lot of cases, my pessimistic view be very, very wrong.
Hey, I love to shut the haters down. Yeah, so I mean, with that, like, this was actually the doc I'm pulling up. This was the. Can y'all see this doc very well? Let me know. Hopefully you can. I can make it bigger if not. But
Zoom into that a little bit.
let's see. I guess I can't do that, can't I? Sorry, it's running a little slow. So zoom in. 100. Let's make it. Yeah. So this doc was actually. This was the first doc we put together when we were trying to form the organization. We did this for. We probably had, like, it was what, somewhere 2 to 4 hours. I don't exactly remember the length, but it was a pretty long call, and we were just kind of outlining all together like what we wanted this organization to be, what all was going to do, and then going from there.
I remember that being multiple 2 to 4 hour calls.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, that's true, because we like couldn't go any longer. We're like, okay, like, let's shut it down.
Yeah.
All right, so like right here
But
with
I think go ahead.
I was just gonna like talk about this a little bit. Like, this all is actually on our website, I believe. Like the framework, like the challenges, just kind of like, what do we want? Like, basically, we came at it like, what do we want to do? Um, what do we want to do? Like, what's keeping us from doing that? And then, like, how can this be a real business?
Yeah.
I
I
like
think
it.
one of
Sorry, it's interesting just looking at it. You go.
yeah, and I think one of the cool things that he's gonna be scrolling down to is we set goals for, and this was, I guess, end of 2017. So we set goals for 2018, or maybe this was, or yeah, I think we set goals for
Yeah, we
2018,
set goals for
2019,
2018.
21 and 22. And so it's kind of interesting seeing you, as we showed that to you guys. It'll be funny, hopefully, for you to see basically where we were wrong, where we were right. And there's some really cool surprises in there.
Yeah, like, yeah, like, it's. I mean, it's cool, like, because I mean, when we started this, we wanted to do it well. Like, we wanted to make sure we were building. We weren't just a group of friends throwing together something. Like, I kind of, when we first started Lone Star, that's what that was. It was like, we're a group of friends. Like, we have an Instagram page. Like, that's who we are. And like when Brian and I started this, like, we
And
didn't
at
want
the
to.
time, clubs were all the rage too.
It's true, and it's like when we
Um,
started.
in the game.
Yeah, and there was like the club competition page that Jack Scotty actually put together, which like had no bearing on anything, but it was a thing. Um,
Yeah, that was an interesting one. And basically came down to what, Fear the West and Atlas. Origin a little bit, but they were too top heavy.
I think we actually ended up being third on that list. I don't remember,
Did
but
we?
we were fairly high just because like we had a lot of solid players. We are fairly deep. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there's in the chat they're talking about how summer camp sounds awesome. That is something we want to do. And again, it just comes down to demand. If there's people to do it, but we'll
We tried
sort.
hard.
Yeah, we did try. We actually worked with the organization. We put it out there. But it's generally more. They were geared more towards like elementary to like middle school aged kids, but um, who knows? Well, eventually I think we'll be able to do them easily, but it's just one of those things. So yes, like,
Yeah, well, too early.
here's some of our roadmaps and next steps. Like, when we started out in 2018, it was like implement and legitimize, um, bring existing clubs into the fold, making hubs, establish 2 to 3 hubs, which I think we actually started out with more than that, didn't we? I don't. We may have been
Yeah,
on here, but
I think we start off with 3 at least.
okay.
So that was a nice one. Automatically got that.
Create TASR training and resources. We did that. Kind of through our hub leader guide. Host inaugural TASR leader conference. We didn't do that. Create tournament pickup schedule. We did that, and it wasn't as much of like a future schedule, but Pickup schedules haven't really worked thus far. We've wanted a better way to figure that out, but it's too hard to regulate all the hubs, especially when they're all volunteer.
Yeah.
Acquire 2 Lone Star sponsorships. Sponsorships are hard. That's one thing I've learned through all of this, and that's part of the reason we want to build all this. Is people don't care about sponsoring a group of like 5 people who are good at playing a sport. People want to sponsor people who have a large reach, and so part of wanting to grow this organization is like we want to get sponsors to be able to help out like the organization and the players as well.
Yeah, because it's like value. It's basically adding value to all parties.
Yeah.
And you realize very quickly that, unsurprisingly, people don't see value in giving you money if if they don't get anything in return. And so,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that was sometimes it looks a lot easier from the outside,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So let's see. 2019 have a minimum of 6 hubs. We did that. At least we ended the year. If we're talking about end of the year metrics, we ended the year with 6 hubs. Transitioned one of the pre-existing hubs to a club. I mean, if you want to count like Y-Spike being like, I know that you're still kind of the hub as well, but definitely a club. So you can say we hit that metric. There wasn't necessarily an official.
yeah, I think that's one that when we talk about like what it means, I think our vision for clubs at the time hasn't quite been realized
For sure.
yet. I
For
think
sure.
the hope would be that there would be like a Y Spike, and then there'd also be one in Houston and Austin and all these ones they can then compete against. And I think that yeah, it's kind of there with Y Spike, but that was more so just down to them being really
For sure.
passionate.
For
And
sure. Which we love.
yeah,
TASR summer camp. I think it was 2019 that last summer 2019 that we tried to do it and just couldn't.
yeah,
So props for that.
the man wasn't there, it wasn't quite right.
Yeah, adding to Lone Star, we added plenty of Lone Star. Yeah, club tournaments that's something we want to do, but obviously things are weird right now. But club tournaments are. So I'm looking at chat right now, but club tournaments are something we
Yeah,
want to do, or at least a hub tournament to try to usher in the club era, if you will. But that's for another
yeah.
time. Host 7 tournaments. We
I think
hosted.
we talked about the Lone Star, actually, to not breeze over that. I think that just kind of shows how much how much the history of Texas Roundnet was painting our view of what the future would
Yeah,
be. Because each year we said that we wanted to add 2 players to Lone Star. And granted, we didn't have the exact specifications spit out for what that would mean, but it was basically like highly competitive premier level players, the top of the game. And we had it as adding 2 of those each year. And it's so funny looking at that now, because I think we added like the past years we had like 5 each time. I mean,
yeah.
like it's
Well,
nuts, but we just could not fathom that
yeah, and
at the
like I
time.
mean, it was awesome is that like we felt like there was enough demand to like add a structure around it, which made it even better. So like before, it's like we didn't just want
Yeah,
like just because someone happened to get high enough, like they get it, but like we had a structure around it. And, like so many solid players were starting to develop that it made sense to get a structure. And yeah, like we just had it just that jump from year to year, like from 2018 to 2019, like it was there, which was awesome.
yeah,
Host 7 tournaments. I mean, we hosted more than 7 tournaments. We had 5 majors, which averaged over 35 teams, probably maybe around there, maybe a little less, but we hosted more than 7 tournaments between high school and college. We didn't host any leadership conferences, and we did. I mean, we have the Savage sponsorship, and that's one that like I think I know we're looking forward to, and especially as we grow as an organization and set ourselves apart from other ones, that's something that we see growing more and more and helping like our certainly our top level players, and it's certainly increasing the quality of our events.
yeah.
Let's see, 2020, I have minimum of 12 hubs, and that's like obviously we're not going to reach that this year, but who knows? I think we have 9 hubs right now, is what it is. And for what it's worth, like Tyler, there were people interested in Tyler and starting hubs, so we could have at least got to 10, which would have been a pretty good
And
number.
I think a
So
little bit of our emphasis there has changed from we still want to add a lot of hubs and make it accessible, but we just want to make sure that I think it's also growing those hubs too, is we've realized, not that it's a harder challenge than we anticipated, but it's just I think our focus on that is definitely like how can we strengthen these current hubs for sure.
Yeah.
Adding ones will be great, but I think a lot of our focus is on that.
Yeah, because I think too, like at least for me, like I was hoping that we could find this like magic way of just like, hey, if we do this, we talk to this person, we go here, we can start a hub wherever we want. We just have to like know the formula. And it's like, maybe there is a
Yeah.
formula, but we haven't found it yet. So it's like we want to create an environment where hubs want to start, but we don't really have the answer for making a hub start wherever we want it to.
And I think a big focus that we've had is with our hubs is not just okay, let's start one and have it be healthy, but it's like let's start one, have it be healthy, and then also make sure that it doesn't die whenever we lose a hub leader.
Yeah.
You talked about how the club died at A&M, which was basically a hub back then.
Yep.
And I think we've had some hubs die with leaders, and we've had some that have transitioned. It's been bumpy, but we've also had some that have transitioned really well. And I think maintaining that continuity is like really, really important.
And now we've started to vet a little bit before we get a hub. It's not just like, oh, you want to be a hub, you're a hub leader, let's announce it. Now there's a little bit of a process where it's like, hey, like let's
Yeah,
make sure you're going to do this, you're going to do it well, communication's there. Because I mean, communication really is the biggest thing. It's like, yes, we want hubs to be hosted like every other week, regularly the same spot. We understand life comes up every now and then, and so like as long as communication is there and we're talking through it, creating a plan, like that's what we're looking for. And taking a group, and now we're seeing a lot more of our hubs have multiple leaders for the group. Like that's great, that's fine. That's the important part is like what
yeah.
people are playing and the hubs going.
Oh, there goes Willa. I think there's a delivery.
Yeah, and like 2020, it's like, so no camps are obviously something we're having to, like kind of swerve on. But two new Lone Star members, like, I mean, and we met our goal there for 2020 with only one tournament, so um, we more than surpassed our goal there. So host 9 tournaments throughout the state, average of 45 teams. I think we would have gotten close to that, seeing as we had 35 at our first major, which was our smallest one last year. I think we actually would have beat that one, which is going to be exciting. And honestly, when we are able to host events again, like I think it could just explode because people are loving Roundnet right now and they're going to want to play.
Yeah.
And
Not to
then
mention, I think there's a lot of families that have bought spike ball sets in this
absolutely,
quarantine time, and
yeah,
so we may come out of this oddly enough well positioned to grow.
yeah,
So
yeah. And then yeah, like I mean, like leader conferences. This isn't something we necessarily have in place, but I think relating to it, just like starting to get like the tournament director materials and system going, that is a way that we can build more like leaders and develop people who are playing within our system. And it's may not, that's something we'd love to do eventually, but I think like the tournament director program is starting to do that. It's like, cause like we want one, like we want this to be like a legit source of income for us, but like I think almost more importantly, we want this to be able to grow into something that's a legit source of income for other people. And part of that is
yeah,
developing leaders within our system who can do these things. Like it would be awesome to like have 5 TASR employees and like this thing is humming. That's exciting just talking about it.
100% agree.
And then hosting state championship tournament. I guess that was more. I think I don't know. I think when we maybe had this in mind, this was probably similar to like a Texas Nationals type event, but we were set to do that. But as far as yeah, I mean, we were set to do that this year, but it was going to be even better than a state championship tournament. We could have done that in 2019. So
Yeah, and I think something that's kind of interesting to note is as we look through these, there's really no mention of college and really no
hmm
mention of high school, and those have been kind of new emergences that have kind of shifted our focus of okay, this is a good way for us to grow. A lot of our players are in high school, in
yep,
college, and that's where they want to compete. That's how they want to compete. And
yeah,
so while it's important for us to support this kind of like larger ecosystem as a whole, uh, we've hosted loads of
yeah.
high school tournaments and college tournaments, and that growth has been really fun.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we'll touch on it more, but I think we see that as an area where like we want to keep pouring into, want to keep developing because like as far as college goes, like there's one sectional per semester, but there's a lot of college students who want to keep competing against other college students, so there's a lot of opportunity there that we certainly want to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And then Like, I mean, this is kind of, it's really like we're just trying to think of like what kind of growth percentage we want. A lot of the same goals, just with bigger numbers. I think, didn't we have high school state championship in here or somewhere?
I think we did.
I don't know where it's
I
at.
think it was 2022. I think it was at the next page.
Oh, next page. I'm not so sure about that. Nope.
I might be wrong.
But I mean, if we didn't even have it on there, it wasn't even something on our mind. I think it's something maybe we wanted, but um, so like I mean, like even this 2022, and
Yeah.
obviously it's a future, but like the more hubs we grow, like I think that's definitely a possibility where like we can have a legit like regionals and nationals type thing. That's something we haven't really talked about, but like I don't know, the more it grows, the more possibility. So
And I think the idea is that we want to have a fun and competitive structure around our tournaments
mhm.
that enable people to get kind of that season type feel of that a lot of people get with the SRA without being maybe at the SRA's level of commitment. Like you may be a really good high school player, but like your parents aren't going to let you play
Yeah,
in Pennsylvania and Atlanta and California to play and compete at that level, but you still want to play and get better and compete and hopefully something. Our idea is to provide that for them here because
yeah,
that's the kind
basically.
of thing that people in other places get naturally.
Yep, and basically like and now like I think the quality is like starting to surpass what a lot of people are going because they don't necessarily have this structure. Obviously, like places like Utah are doing a great job, but and I think these structures are going to start coming more. But we want to give like kind of an area for three different types of people, like people who just want to play casually, but want to play casually in more than like two events a year. There wasn't really anything. It'd be like one Texas tournament and then one in the Dallas Tour Stop. There wasn't really anything else. There's lots of people who want to play casually for fun, a lot. Something for people who want to play competitively but can't afford to travel and play competitively at every single tournament. Like this is great for that. Like it allows you to stay competitive, increase your skill, and then the third would be for people who want to become competitive, um, but it doesn't make sense for them to go and play like in the intermediate or advanced at every tour step of the year. Like this is almost better than getting to play, especially obviously now we added the gold division, which would have played out a lot more, but it like allows them to compete at that level and prepare for that, like a nice um, training ground as well to complete the skill level. And then there's just people who like want to play casually but at a competitive level. So really, that's like those four, like increasing the local level of play adds on to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean on this doc, finishing it off, I mean it's kind of like our action steps. We kind of went through it, like okay, like what do we need to do? Like what do we need to have done? Here are our hubs, and like some of these, like, I'd still love to have a
And I
Fort Worth one.
Yeah, and I think one of the big action steps that we haven't touched on yet was actually forming an LLC,
Yeah.
like registering as a company with the state of Texas, and that was something we actually didn't do until like June 2018. You know, we kind of talked about what our expectations were for this whole thing. It was like, oh, we'll form this organization as we start thinking, oh, how do we make this legitimate? How do we provide value? It's like we need to be a company in order to provide the best value, and I think we've seen that play out now. But especially, it just basically enabled us to um, have high aspirations for what we could do, and
Yeah.
really what we did then, not later, because I think it did help us as we kind of um, I think another big thing we haven't touched on that all builds into this is Logan. I mean, we both wrote a lot of the stuff for the website, but Logan developed the website, and that was huge because it just before we were even a company, we had that, and it was wow. Let's have a we can point people to this, we can show people this,
Yeah.
we can we can now be found on the internet besides some random
Yeah.
page,
Well,
Facebook page or something.
and that's one of the things that I think worked really well when we first started is that like I was kind of setting up the website, getting that going while you were like doing all like the nitty gritty of the LLC and getting that going. Because like you said, like being a legit business, having that legitimacy to interact with other organizations was important. Um,
Yeah.
Like we can't just be like a group of people that's like doing something because we want to. Like the legitimacy of like, hey, we are a legit organization. We are looking to earn revenue. Like we want to make a profit. That is something that we wanted to do. So that was important. And then having the presentation to say like, hey, and now it's like it's great because anytime like we want to have something more official, we throw a web page together. We throw what we want on there and be like, hey, like here's our website. And like now we have our emails at texasroundnet.com. And I think every little piece of that, from having the business to even like connecting to the bank account, like all the tournaments I hosted before that were just like, I would try to separate it in my account and be like, it's my TASR money. And then like, I was like, oh, it can, or not necessarily TASR money, but like, this is like my tournament money. Maybe I'll do something with it. And it just ended up getting bought in and like wasn't growing to grow the sport, but like establishing that bank account, the LLC, having an official like business bank account and credit cards, like to use towards expenses. It's like, yes, now like we're building up cash to put back into the business to grow the sport, and do bigger and better things with it.
And I think just to expand on the idea of like this kind of validation, it wasn't just, hey, now I can tell my friends, hey, I've got a business. It was, there were multiple meetings, I remember, where we've even been talking with a sponsor or we've been talking with a Parks and Rec department, any of these things, and we're working on something. And they've actually asked, like, hey, are you an LLC? Like, do you have all these things? And it's just, it communicates a sense of like professionalism, commitment. And I think just being able to say that, that's removing a barrier for us, and it's helped us get things going and helped give our partners ultimately trust that, hey, we know what we're doing, and we are like ready for this. Like we're ready to take this chance now. This is
Yeah.
a new sport. A lot of times we're asking them to take a chance with us.
Yeah.
So
And like when people see the organization as legitimate, they see the sport as legitimate. Like, oh, there's an organization like an LLC, an established business around the sport. Like this is a legit sport. And I think what's great too is like being this like parent organization. It's like we can come alongside our hubs, and like be like, hey, like let's throw a web page together for your event. Now you can register under us. Like being able to do that and support our hubs in that way, or like Y-Spike, they did the fundraiser with Chick-fil-A. Like we're able to come along and be like, hey, yeah, you can send that check to us. We'll get that money to you. You're more or less operating under our business, and like we can help that happen, help things go along in that way. And like we are that governing body to like approve things and give that legitimacy and acceptance to a lot of things that people lower want to do, and it's not something that they have to worry about. It's like we can help with that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think, and those are some of the things like I don't necessarily get talked about much, like setting up the website, setting up the LLC, the bank account. Like those are three big things that like are important, I think, to starting like a legit like I mean business, but like Roundnet business for sure. Once you do those things, it's like you're going and you can start planning out. And honestly, like
Yeah.
this planning doc was huge for us to like start seeing the vision and form it from there on moving forward.
Yeah. Basically, this vision doc, when you look at it, it's like, oh, this is like 4 pages,
Yeah.
but what it did was it got all of our talking from 2017 onto paper and then allowed for us to then move forward. And that was such a big moment as far as, wow, okay, this is feeling more real.
Yeah.
And with each step, it feels more real. And that was, um, yeah, I mean, it basically, it was a couple 2 to 4 hour meetings that capped off half a year of thinking about it.
Yeah. And I think that's like what is really important is just putting in the time to form the business, like form the idea, form the vision, see what you want to do, before just being like, hey, yeah, like we're gonna do this. And if someone is gonna form an RRO, it shouldn't just be like, oh yeah, let's do it and see what happens. Like form it out, get an idea, and then it like will start to build from there.
Yeah.
And I think
And
that's
so, speaking of forming ideas, you want to talk about kind of the vision that we have for
yep,
this?
yep. Just moving over the arrow for the string. There we go. Boom. Okay. Yeah. So like, I mean, obviously, like I could talk about ideas forever on things we want to do, but I think two of the easiest things to talk about are um, like high school and college. Like one, high school is something that's growing so much, and like I think we'll be able to do like full high school series, however many tournaments that's going to consist of. But and I'm just going to talk, and some of these things I haven't even necessarily talked to Brian about, but it's just ideas I have. But like putting together, I say this as I'm talking about this. It's just something I've wanted to do. Um, and so being able to do a series that high school players are earning eligibility, or like when we do nationals, it just gives more value to nationals and high school state championship and whatever would be high school sectionals, high school tournaments. Like that's one thing we want to do. And then, like we mentioned earlier with college, there's only one sectional per semester. Like being able to do these tournaments, so that college players can have more college tournaments, and even hosting some like club only tournaments. And then like we want to do hub tournaments to where like we can just like have our hubs compete in like a squad fashion. Like the squad competition is so exciting and so much fun. And I think long term, like having our hubs compete at those, and maybe eventually it's the hub club, whatever that will be, will compete. But to start out, we just have the hubs compete, and I think that's something that may be small the first year, but I think could help grow more hubs and just be a more like rallying cry and like start to become like the Texas community. Like we get to bolster that like local Texas community too around hubs. And that's one thing that we wanted to try to push in 2020 was like that like hub pride. And I think that's something moving forward, like we'll want to push as well, is that hub pride.
And I think something you touched on with the high school series, and like one of the reasons why we think these kind of series and the kind of the big structure around it is so important is that there are so many high schools. They're just high school kids who play at their high school, and they just have huge tournaments every Friday and things like that. And just off the record, just playing to have fun, and like that's great. But we know that there's players or kids there who would like be interested in playing more seriously. And so if the more that this structure becomes established and becomes something, the more enticing it becomes, and the more these kids who are like, oh yeah, I play every once in a while, they
Yeah.
might be like, oh, that might be kind of dope. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
go compete. And then like all of a sudden their eyes are open to, wow, one, there's like this really cool sport that has these layers where like, oh, I can compete at these levels. But also, wow, there's this, that's then an entry point for them to be accepted into our community of roundup players. And that's what we want, is we want everyone in Texas who plays roundnet to have the opportunity to be a part of this
Yeah.
community
Yeah.
if they want to.
And like, and just thinking about like high school, like I get pumped when I think about like the funnel of just like of what'll eventually be like younger kids and then like high school kids. But right now, like our funnel starts in high school, and like I think it like Nick Rushing was the first like big high school recruit, and like he'll
Yeah.
be going to A&M next time, and then now like Cooper Diaz, he's killing it and like earned gold, and so it's like we're gonna start having this funnel where we like have these high school players who are making a name for themselves, and then it's like the hype of like, oh, where are they going to go to college, where are they going to play, like how is this going to affect their club. And I think Texas is going to start seeing that develop a lot earlier than a lot of other states are, and then that's going to help our overall level of play because we're going to have that funnel established, and we're going to start having those, and then college will be elevated, and then as players graduate, and we have uh, top level players, like then that will start to elevate as well, and so this whole funnel will elevate the whole system, and then like we can start doing like recruiting talk and putting out like content on like recruiters, and then like who's going to be where and content on like clubs, and then top high school players, top college players, Texas top 100, and just there's just so much like to build off, just going off with like increasing the college and high school game, and then it becomes like, okay, how do we fit high school series, college series, major series, and that comes us like, okay, growing, and like if we're getting the revenue for that, like at what point are we able to like hire someone to help us run these events and fit these games into these weekends, and man, there's just so much.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot there. I think on another note, there's that's kind of like high school and college, and fitting into these tournaments. I think another thing that we're really looking to is kind of the general population, which tournaments awesome. Like people kind of find out about those and come, but when you look at most of your kind of like general population adult sports, those are leagues, and we see there being a really good opportunity as basically as more kids who found out about spike ball growing up now like graduate into young adulthood and now know about spike ball, know about round net. uh, as they then find that, they can then get to the point where it's like, oh, I actually might play in a league. People play kickball tournaments all the time. Roundnet's way more fun than kickball.
Agreed. Agreed.
And so we're really excited about building up like a league structure um, that's on kind of these sport and social pages that's accessible to these things, and a lot of for the same reasons that we have these high school and clubs, high school and college clubs, where it's like, yeah, here's an opportunity for them, want us to welcome them into the community, but just to show people more like, hey, there's a competitive kind of sport side to this kind of game,
Yeah.
and we see that being a big part of our vision.
And I think that's like, I think ideally, if the way we want it is every hub has a league. And so then it's like when people want to play the sport, like if there's a hub there, they know there's going to be at least one tournament there per year. And then there's going to be a league there as well that they can compete and play in. And our partnering with Parks and Rec, I think, is huge for the sport, and gives lots of different opportunities. And just being able to run leagues like that helps so much. And I
Yeah.
think within the series is like, man, if the sport grows enough, eventually, like we can host like local series that lead up to like the national series, and like you just keep breaking it down. Which I mean, I think we're a little bit away from that, but eventually, like Texas can be broken up into like regions and sections, and there's like an individual series at each, um, and it all like centers around the hubs and like getting those leagues and tournaments going.
Yeah. I
And
think another kind of, or go ahead.
I was gonna say, and like I mean, businesses as well are something we want to like do is like work with like doing like team training, like bringing teams together, just like this casual, like introducing the people to the sport and playing it and like connecting with them. And I think that's a good way to use the sport to eventually get sponsorships as well.
Yeah. I think another cool thing that we hope for is the establishment of, we can call it clubs that mean something. So whether it be our local clubs, and so something like Y Spike, uh, imagine if each of our hubs had a kind of semi-pro club attached to it, where maybe it's not money, but you've got all the competitive players there, and we can run leagues or special tournament series just for them. And the idea of having that built out in a way where you've got these just even a whole nother layer of kind of higher competition built in a very structured way. And then I know Logan loves to talk about this. So I'll let him kind of take it on further. But one day, it's not going to be as the sport will not be like it is now forever. And not talking about rule changes. We're talking about kind of a legitimacy, and we think the idea is eventually clubs will mean something at the national level, and we would love for there to be professional clubs here. And we think that I mean, I'll let Logan talk about it, but we think that there's a way for our kind of development system to feed into that very well.
Yeah, and yeah, like I mean, I love it. And like I like to think like we'll have like a professional franchise, and like we will have players that will be competing, and this is going to be long after we're able to do that. So it'll be exciting to empower players. And like, I mean, really long term, there's a
Yeah.
facility where like they're practicing, and like it's the Lone Star facility. Like we have our field, and no quarantine can keep us out. But yeah, like it's the development of like that sport. And so like we're one of like the top level franchises, and like we're providing our players with salary to play, and like that can be their job, or at least to start out it can be like something where it's a part-time job that'll gets them a pretty good chunk of change. And then um like we can have like trainers and whatnot, and like a facility and a program to develop our players, and develop a real like professional franchise as it is. And so like that gets me excited. And I think that's a real possibility, and a little ways out right now, but who knows, like as fast as everything else has grown, maybe it's closer than I think it is. But um, that gets me excited just thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think there's two sides of it, as far as like how you get there. Before we get into that, the idea here isn't that we think this is going to happen right now, but we have this vision for what could be, and it gets us super pumped. And sometimes whenever we're going through the slog, and things are tedious. It's think about those vision points of, wow, what's this going to be like in the future that can kind of
Yeah.
push you through.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about like a professional or semi-professional club, there's kind of two sides of that we think will determine what that looks like and how quickly it kind of comes to be. The first one is, how do clubs fit into an actual competitive scene? And I think this is the part that will come first. Is okay, everyone loves squads in college. I imagine a squad like thing with clubs will either come alongside or even replace the individual circuit.
Yeah.
It will just be an engaging thing that is more fun to watch, really fun to play, and that will then kind of give birth to the importance of, oh, here's an important reason to have a club. And what that looks like as far as geographically centered and things like that, who knows? But the idea of that being a relevant and meaningful part of competition
Hmm.
is super important, and we think will come at some point. And then the other side of it is money. Is there money coming into the sport, uh, whether it be from uh, kind of viewers or sponsors? It's all tied together, but basically, no. If you're looking at any sports kind of franchise or league, no sports franchise or league is funded by kind of youth or recreational sports kind of entrance fees.
Yeah.
The money comes from elsewhere. And so before we talk about having a professional or semi-professional club where the players are actually paid, you've got to have the money coming in elsewhere. And, who knows how long it'll take for us to get to that point. But we don't necessarily like that'll be the full realized vision. But we think that the sport could get to a point where clubs are meaningful before that. And maybe
Yeah.
that'll even push to kind of make that happen quicker, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And like, I think part of that developing that is like we want to be able to do. I think we're going to look to do a lot more streaming when we're able to host tournaments again and do like live quality streaming. I think we want to be one of the first organizations to start doing high quality streams at our events, and really try to bring up the level of professionalism in at least individual tournaments up a notch. And so that's just one step into getting the more viewers, the more sponsorship, and getting that. And I know like Spikeball Inc. is wants to do that as well and grow the sport on that level too. So that's something we want to follow suit in and just get that up. And it all goes along with just bringing more legitimacy to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about the vision. I mean, we could talk about this all night, so
Absolutely.
we can probably move on.
Yep. Stories. Maybe throw a couple stories if anyone has any specific stories from Texas Roundnet lore that you'd be interested in. We could always do that, but maybe do a couple stories and then do the last few parts real quick and wrap it up.
Do we want to end on stories? Maybe we do like COVID-19 real quick, and then we can do stories and Q&A.
Yeah, that works. That works because COVID will be real quick. I mean, so
Yeah.
COVID, obviously, like we're in the same place as everyone else. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where it's going to go, when everything's going to be good to go. And certainly with the state by state difference in what's happening, it makes it harder to judge. But I mean, for us, I guess we're really looking for, in order to host tournaments, we're looking for a number large enough that is allowed for us, like, to comfortably host our tournaments, and if for it to be worth it with all the precautions we'll have to take as well, because who knows what kind of precautions we would need to do for player safety and whatnot. So it's really all murky right now, because when we host tournaments, like, it's not just going to be able to be a normal tournament like it was. There's going to be some other things unless like a vaccine is found. So for tournaments, like we're really just playing a waiting game, and leagues is kind of where we feel like we have an opportunity, at least in Texas right now, because they're allowing 4-person non-contact sports.
Yeah. And so really that's our thing, is we see tournaments as being something that won't happen in the short term. It'll be medium to long term, and most likely shorter seasons, things like that, to allow us to be more nimble. But I think, but like Logan said, leagues will be the thing. And so we're working to get leagues up and running and have, we've got precautions and kind of things that'll be different rules to make sure that the player's safety is kind of maintained. It's super important, and we feel responsible that any event we put on, that our players, feel safe and comfortable. And so, but we also want to be able to provide, this competition that we've all missed so much, when safe. And so we're working and keeping an eye on everything there. And so, keep stay tuned.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have some fun updates, but
And right now you can see kind of like our idea for leagues is that it's texasroundnet.com/COVID-19-response. And that's kind of like what we're working, at least with the city of Allen right now, to hopefully run a league starting mid-June. And so with that, that's kind of like how we're working with them and the ideas that we're both putting into place in order to safely run the leagues. And that's something we'll be pitching to other cities as well. So if you do want to see those, you can check out that site. It's texasroundnet.com/COVID-19-response. All right. I guess, yeah, we'll go up to stories. We can tell a
kind of
few
combine
and
the
then
stories with the Q&A.
yeah, stories and Q&A. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to put the arrow on Q&A. Actually, no, I'll put on stories. Oh, what I'll do is all very clever of me. Just wait for it. Unlock. Stories. Oh, can I do this though? Let's see. I don't think I can. Did it copy? No. Oh, it did. Let's go. Oh, shoot. And Q&A. Double whammy. There we go. Oh, I guess no one can see that except me, so I'm the only one getting excited. Boom. Yeah. I guess right now, if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask and we'll address them, or any specific stories. But I feel like one story I'll start off with, which is, it's not just one story, it's kind of just the idea of Waffle House in Texas Roundnet lore, and how I had never
Yes.
eaten at Waffle House before I played Roundnet. And then I don't remember where it was, but it was some long trip. We had to eat at Waffle House, and I think I was against it, and then I did, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, like this has to happen. And then every single trip from there on out, we stopped at Waffle House. Like that was like a requirement. And if there's one thing that I could pass down to Texas Roundnet 2.0, it's the Waffle House trip.
I could not agree more. I think the only time we didn't stop on one of these kind of big road trips at Waffle House, either on the way there or back, was and most of the time it was both. Keep in mind, was Zach Danila went through a like 6-month to a year phase where he claimed he was like gluten intolerant, which ended up being completely bogus. He never got it tested. He just claimed it, and so he claimed that it was not fun to go to Waffle House because he couldn't have the waffle. Which ended up just, I mean, if you know Zach, it's just the most Zach thing ever. It's so funny. But I remember we all just about died whenever he told us that 6 months, a year later, he was miraculously cured.
Well, and didn't he go to Waffle House once and order just a tomato? Like that was all he ordered, was a tomato. I'm pretty sure that happened.
Yeah, that definitely happened. And if, you can imagine what a single tomato is like at Waffle House. Like you go there to get, soul food. You don't go there to get fresh, I guess, fruit.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, thinking through stories, I think one of our big TASR initiatives should be doing a 30 for 30 style, like documentary on artificial flavors. It's one of the like, I mean, they really did own Texas Roundnet, up until they kind of left the game. But it was in short, just an odd mismatch of personality types that was held together by just talent and a desire to win. But it ultimately just strained the relationship too much. And I mean, it was a huge loss to Texas Roundnet when they stopped playing, but 30 for 30 should get it. If they get their hands on that, it would just be some phenomenal material.
That would be. I mean, yeah, like they were like they had so much skill, but just because of the way they played together and just their personalities, they just couldn't make it happen. Because
Yeah.
there were so many games. Like man, there were so many games that they lost. Like at 2014 Nationals, they lost to Danger Zone out of Colorado. Like they were a better team than them. Like when they lost to
Koala Hunters the next year, right?
uh did they lose to Koala Hunters? I don't remember that one. I mean, that's not as much of a loss where I'm like, they could have won, but so
Yeah.
no, Koala Hunters was before Danger Zone. That was at regionals.
Okay.
And then like
But basically, it's a tale of them kind of dominating Texas and never like they did well outside of Texas, definitely the best of any Texas team, but they never hit the heights that of kind of that upper echelon, and a lot of that was down to chemistry and personality issues within their team, and I don't think it quite allowed. I think that got in the way of them hitting their ceiling.
that's something I think we want to change. Like we want to change too. Is like clearly there's a history of the team that dominates Texas struggles in on the national scene. So, I mean, you and I could witness that pretty well last year, which it's pretty tough. But the team that does well in
Yeah,
Texas, just we haven't had a team just dominate in Texas and in the national scene. So that's something we want to develop the players to do that we never did.
Texas Roundnet 2.0 better solve that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for real. I mean,
Uh,
I would love to do some more like media content like that and just put it out. That'd be so much fun.
yeah, man, I'm just thinking of like the classic like 30 for 30. Like, what if I told you? Best
For
team in
real.
Texas couldn't get it done on the national stage.
For
Or
real.
like the interview with like Grayson and Zach, like 5 years later. I mean, that would just be amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
that would be pretty
but
awesome.
but yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good there. I think other stories. I mean, it's one of the seminal kind of like big moments for me was I mean it's sort of Texas, sort of southeast, but there was like a southeast meetup in Destin, which I don't know if you were able to go to, Logan. Were you
Mm,
at that one?
no, I was not at that one.
Yeah, that was
That
awesome. It
you're
was
not talking about the
me.
tournament, right?
No, not the tournament. It was just a meetup. We stayed at Brady's like
Yeah, I remember
parents'
that happening.
house. It was dope. It was like me and I think Andrew Porter and Sam and maybe Chase and Garrett all drove up there or there.
That's awesome.
And I mean, that was just an incredible thing. Brady, Kyle Kirkman, Andrew Card, Jenna was there. Oh man! And so like at the time this happened, that was like R.I.P. Andrew Card, I think was still Scenic City, but that was just an absolute blast playing in the Destin white sand beaches. But
Yeah, I think one of the saddest stories of Texas Roundnet as well was just how my favorite team was always fire extinguishers, and fire extinguishers would always hang with every other team, but just never could finish. And like every time I would root for y'all so much, and like y'all had so many close games, and just never finished, and it was always the worst.
yeah, I think that was the tale of fire extinguishers, which was me and Sam for those who don't know. But we were that almost team. I think we were everyone's like favorite team to play because you'd get a really fun series with like awesome rallies and always win.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
But
I feel like last year we were only a slightly evolved. We were like a slightly evolved version of fire extinguishers. We finished a few times, but
yeah,
ultimately we came up the ultimate short.
yep, the ultimate short. I mean, it's true, and I think it's like it would have been interesting to see it go another year and see us
For sure.
build on that. Um, Obviously, you know, Corona happened and retirement happened, but it's yeah. I think for a lot of Texas history, fire extinguishers was that almost team.
Yeah, and that's why we hope the future of Texas right now. We had always joked around good, not great, and like that's something I kind of wanted to drop a little bit just because I don't want to necessarily be associated with that idea, and we hope that the future is great, not good.
For those who don't know, that was Lone Star's official, unofficial slogan.
Yep.
It
Yep.
was hilarious. We even got headbands made. They're dope.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well,
But
I guess if there's any more, I don't know if you have any dying stories you want to tell, but probably a good time to start wrapping it up.
I think so. Yeah. If there's any questions left, I think we're down to a couple viewers at this point. So
Yeah.
I think anyone's gotten in what they need to ask. So
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I mean, we'll put this on YouTube, so um, hopefully there's some helpful stuff. If anything, you came for the RRO stuff and enjoyed some of that. I think this is just fun. This is like I mean, we don't really have anything like recording Texas history. This is like our oral recording of Texas history. So maybe
yeah,
this can be in the books as something that kind of recounts old tales and old players. And no matter how much the sport grows, like I hope that we can continue to like lead the way on it. And that for me, like I mean, the guys that we started all off with, and um, that they'll just all be remembered because they're a big part of all of this. And so like for us, like we have that, which is exciting. So I'm
yeah. I
excited we
think
have
that was
this
the
as
main reason. It was those guys that like I think for a lot of years, I don't think we would have kept playing had it not been for that crew. Like if it was just two of us or something like that, we probably would have fallen off.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
having those, uh, remembering those guys is just so important. So
yeah, it's awesome. So I'm glad we have this. We have our oral history and telling, and then there's so much more that we could have added on here. We could have gone on for hours just telling stories of Texas Roundnet, but we at least have some oral history keeping of Texas Roundnet now. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. If there's a lot
yeah,
of
thanks for
time,
tuning in.
yeah, we appreciate y'all whether you're watching it live or watching it recorded. We'll hopefully do this again with some other stuff and have some exciting streams. So we'll talk to y'all later.
Yep.